painfully remember when I had to move back in with my parents after college, and I just had a full on like panic attack. I was like, like the free ride's over. Like I'm back home. I'm living where I really thought I'd never have to live again. And I had committed myself to like, well, my career is comedy and I'm going to make comedy. And I was very lucky that my parents were letting me stay at their house for free, but I wasn't very lucky. It was terrible.
Welcome again to Screenwriters Talk Screenwriting. This episode is a replay of an interview we did with screenwriters Doug Mand and Dan Gregor. They wrote the new Naked Gun movie, as well as the new Chippendales Rescue Rangers movie, which came out a few days after this interview. And they wrote for Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, How I Met Your Mother, and a lot more. Please enjoy this interview with the very funny Dan Gregor and Doug Mand.
Welcome to Screenwriters Talk Screenwriting with your hosts, Jordan Emiola, Kirsten Porter, and Rand Shammy.
Screenwriters Talk Screenwriting.
All right, our guests today are Dan Gregor and Doug Mand, screenwriters of the Disney Plus film Chippendales Rescue Rangers, and TV writers for shows such as Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, How I Met Your Mother, and a whole lot more. Welcome, Dan and Doug.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, so we're going to start at the very beginning and then catch up to present day. So our first question for you is, where did it all start? What made you want to write or create content?
Oh, it started from everything. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I had terrible stage fright as a kid, and like I ran off stage crying during like the middle school play one time, and so it was a big problem for me. Like I always had a lot of anxiety about it, and then I eventually like realized I needed to confront those fears, and I got into the nerdiest of all things, which is high school sketch comedy. Um, and like my senior year of high school, I started doing like the high school sketch group, and I started like performing that in like this very like I was always a funny kid, but I was never like a get on stage kind of funny person. And so I sort of forced myself to get through that fear, and then even much more so, I started doing improv and sketch comedy in college, and it really I could see how it was like making me a better person, and it was making me able to talk to strangers, talk to people, be more confident, all the things you kind of tell people to get into like a first level improv class for. And it's actually how Doug and I ended up meeting, is in like a writing class at NYU, but we started a sketch group together, and but that remains still sort of this safety valve I have on my inclinations towards isolation and depression and just introversion. And so that the performance side of it, the comedy side of it, is probably the biggest way that I sort of fight those things. And so I always find that like that's like my own internal balance of like I have to go be creative out loud with people. Otherwise I will like start just like scrunching up into a ball and never talking to people.
I love that story.
Yeah.
I also I was not scared of being on stage. It was one of the only things I was not scared of, and currently still am not scared of. I like being on stage. I like performing. I like making people laugh. I did not think I was ever going to be a writer. I always, I thought that I was not intellectual enough to be a writer. I thought I would be in some kind of performing or acting. And I went to college. I went to Skidmore for 2 years, and I saw the sketch team perform, and I was like, oh, I want to do that. Audition, got in. And then when I transferred to NYU, I met Dan in a writing class, and he said, come on and audition for my sketch group. And that was kind of my way into it. And then realizing very quickly that just being an actor is an awful thing to try to do, and start producing for yourself. And that's what kind of led me into writing and kind of learning how to write sketch, and then TV and features in that kind of order, and seeing, and then just growing to really love that even more than performing and wanting that more.
Awesome. So we know you're both at UCB. Did you do a lot of crossover there? Did you join together?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
I mean,
Dan had discovered it before.
I was there. I like actually transferred. I went for my freshman year to Brandeis University in Boston, and having a terrible time, really depressed. And I visited a friend at NYU for the weekend, and he was like, "Hey, you got to come to this theater and check out this thing that I found." And it was like, still, I mean, it wasn't even in the theater on 26th Street, if you remember that. It was actually still at the old strip club on 22nd Street, and even more of a dirt hole, kind of a black box. And I went, and it really was like some people have religious awakenings. I had like an emotionally like creative religious awakening, because I went, I saw like some of the teams there. It was like the old Respecto Montalban team. It was like Rob Riggle and Rob Hubel and Paul Scheer and that kind of crew. And I remember, and I left that show like that one weekend, and I instantly went home and I downloaded the transfer application to NYU, and I was like, that's it. That's what I'm doing. And I went back to Boston that weekend, and I filed to transfer. And the moment I got to New York, I started taking classes at UCB, started performing there. And it was like, it just gave me a real center of gravity and a real purpose. And basically, Doug and I started this sketch group at NYU called Hammercats, and we sort of brought that sketch group over to UCB when we graduated. And UCB became everything to us for a long time. It was our creative home. It was where all our friends were. It was where we were both learning and cutting our teeth and making stuff constantly. We had an hour-long show every Friday for a year, where crazy how much time they actually gave us to fill. And so the amount of just stuff that we were doing constantly was wild, and it was amazing. And so that became like where all of our best relationships still are to this day. For many years, our third writing partner was Adam Pally. We made many pilots and shows and sketches with him, and we've been just sort of in that world ever since.
Yeah, I came through Dan, and then when I saw it, I also had a religious experience. I remember being the first show I saw. I remember who was on stage. Some of those people I became very close with. Could not believe what I was watching, and I quickly applied to be an intern. I spent over a year working there every Friday night,
shoveling shit,
cleaning toilets, selling tickets, and it was one of the
fighting off the rats.
Yeah, it was it was a disgusting place, but absolutely. It was also the best. We were there are certain things you can't control. We were lucky. The timing of us being at UCB at the time was just perfect, because it had only just started being discovered a little bit, and there was just so much talent there, and just people cutting their teeth and becoming the performers that you see today. But we were just there, and I spent every one of my weekends there for 6 hours a night. So it was great.
Did most of the people that you came up with at UCB, did most of them go on to have some sort of TV job?
Really surprising.
Most is a hard one, because the number of TV jobs out there can be depressingly low. However, a wild amount of people, yes. I mean, the answer is kind of yes, which is shocking. It's shocking how many people have found themselves able to support themselves doing comedy in some form or another. It's wild.
Our sketch group alone had Donald Glover, who became obviously, a big guy, and
a big guy, the understatement of the year.
I know. I don't know. He's not, he's everything.
We went to NYU with him, and he was in our group.
And then Fran Gillespie became, one of the long-term SNL writers forever. She just left. She's a brilliant writer. And DC Pearson, Dominic Durkis, and also very successful writers, and Greg Burke, Lou Perez are brilliant sketch comedians. And that was our first group, Hammercats.
And that was just our group, our college, and like, which is also very rare for a college sketch group to go on to produce working writers and actors. So yes.
So
the
yeah,
answer is surprisingly yes.
It was our very first pilot that we kind of shot by ourselves was with Ellie Kemper before she did any major stuff. And so it was like a really special time to like be coming up through UCB, because everyone was it was a real locus for talented people from all over the kind of country, because people were just kind of coming, just hearing about it. Like, it was still weird enough that there wasn't necessarily like a corporatized nature to how people were looking to make their bones there. It wasn't like an alternative to acting school or something, which it is sort of now in its own weird way. It was
for lack of, not to sound lame, but there was a very punk rock element to UCB then. It was a real like, fuck it, put it on stage and go for it attitude there. And it was especially before people started getting plucked from there, but even after, but there was a real period of time when like there was just an obscene amount of talent there, and everyone was still struggling to make ends meet, by doing VH1 talking head shows and stuff like that. So
that was the best you could.
And that was the best. That was the best job you could have.
You're like, I made it. I got to comment on on Britney Spears' outfit as a talking head on VH1. That's where my career. If I don't do another thing, I'll be happy.
That was the pinnacle.
So coming through UCB, what were some of the challenges you faced?
I mean, the thing that we found really was that nobody pays you for that. And so you, at a certain point, you're like, oh, this is the most fun thing in the world. But I at some point need to figure out, like, well, how am I gonna continue to pay my rent with this? And so Doug and I really worked to start making short films and sketches that we could hopefully, sell in some way or another. And so
to turn into a format that wasn't sketch. I think that was the big thing. We were like, we're probably not gonna get a sketch show. There's a handful of sketch shows. They do happen. I'm not saying it can't happen for people out there, but it is a real narrow, small group of people. So we were like, we're not, we would take meetings, people would see our shows and they like us, but no one would know what the fuck to do with us. So Dan and myself, and I was living with Adam Pally at the time, we made a real concerted effort to be like, what can we make that will be a calling card to say, like, we can make television, and that's what we started to do. We started to shoot things and make sketches that we felt could be part of a larger narrative. Could be part of a show, could be the first 10 minutes of a movie, whatever that may be. And we used our community of comedians that we knew and filmmakers that we knew from school to start going out and making things. So the challenges, I mean, we lived a very charmed existence, being able to go to NYU and be at UCB. The challenges were just business challenges of like, well, how do you actually turn this into a career?
When you were at UCB, were you going to college as well? Or was there a time where you were UCB trying to, that transition from college to real life? And like you're talking about money and what do you do?
I mean, I remember, we started at UCB while we were in college, but I very painfully remember when I had to move back in with my parents after college. And I just had a full on like panic attack. I was like, oh, like, the free ride's over. Like I'm back home. I'm living where I really thought I'd never have to live again. And I was making, and I had committed myself to like, well, my career is comedy and I'm going to make comedy. And I was very lucky that my parents were letting me stay at their house for free, but I wasn't very lucky. It was terrible. No one's really blah, blah, blah. No one's lucky to move back in with their parents. And so, there's a real existential fear that you're going to be a little infantilized baby the rest of your life living with mommy and daddy. And so it was something that I very distinctly remember being like, this is crazy. I'm making almost no money, and I'm just going into the city every day to go make more sketch comedy for no money. And it's definitely really scary, to just sort of put your faith in like, is gonna work out, it's gotta work out. um and it's eventually, preparation meets luck, and that's called opportunity.
Totally. You put your faith in it, and here it is. It happened.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you for taking us down this walk down your UCB memory lane.
Thank you. Sorry if
Thank you
that's
for
like
letting
not
us.
at all. Yeah.
Yeah, we always want to know where our guests come from and where they start. But to shift gears to something more recent, your latest film, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, comes out in a few days. How did you both end up writing on that project?
You want me to take a little of this, Dan, and then you
Go for it. Yeah.
Well, okay. I looked at what you guys do. It's really cool what you guys with Deadline Junkies do. I didn't know. So I imagine that this is a pretty specific group of people that listen to this as well. So just to take you behind the curtain a little bit, we had been working for a little while. We had been on How I Met Your Mother. We were taking meetings, and you get to a place. Sometimes, if you're lucky enough to get to talk about open writing assignments, which are properties that different companies have the rights to, and they're like, we want to make a movie, and so that's one of them. Just happened to be the Rescue Rangers at Disney. We had a meeting, and initially, actually, Dan and I were not interested in meeting on it, because we loved the Rescue Rangers, loved it growing up, but we were like, why would we? What would we be saying different about it? And to Disney's credit, and to Mandeville, the company that produced it, Todd Lieberman and Alex Young, they were like, just pitch us anything you want, and let's just see. And here's a little, Dan and I months before had gone in on a different open writing assignment, and we worked our asses off on breaking an entire movie
for the Hardy Boys.
We didn't get the job, and so this is out there to let people know that there's no work is for nothing. So then we were talking about it, and we were like, there's parts of that pitch that could fit quite nicely into Rescue Rangers, and they're telling us to bring us whatever you want. And so we made a pitch around some of the tentpoles that we had come up for the Hardy Boys, and then built a different story, and pitched it, and they liked it, and they paid us to write it, and that's how it came about. It was very unexpected. We couldn't believe they kept, in a business where you usually hear no, they kind of kept saying, do it, go for it, because it was kind of a property that had been dead, really. And
yeah, I mean look, I don't know where you got. I'm an old millennial, and I loved the Rescue Rangers growing up, and so I genuinely was.
The proper term is geriatric millennial.
That's offensive.
It's quite accurate, but it's offensive.
I just learned about this. I'm very excited of my new knowledge.
No, don't perpetuate that, please.
Right.
We're keeping that in here. We're not going to make that a thing.
A decrepillennial. And so, yeah, so it was. I was a fan of this, like, very much growing up. Like, I loved going to the parks, hugging Chip and Dale. But the real of it is, as adults, I imagine you guys probably maybe had this reaction the first time you heard about this movie, was like, really? Why? And like, there's not like an inherent need to make this a movie today. And that was the first thing we reacted to when we heard that they wanted to do this. We were like, okay. But we took that sort of feeling and that energy into our thought process about how to come up with a movie. And so the movie really is like based almost from the launching pad of like, does anyone need a Rescue Rangers reboot? The original title of the movie was the Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers reboot no one asked for. And so, it's deeply baked into the pitch and the premise of the movie that, like, it's that we're very aware that this is not the, like, this isn't Star Wars. Like nobody's like dying for like the next iteration of
It's
of
not
the
Star Wars. It's
universe.
better than Star Wars.
Oh,
No,
Huh?
it's not. But
Doug
it
doesn't
is.
like Star Wars. Doug doesn't like Star Wars. We're just gonna get it out on the record.
What about Star Trek?
Star Trek's fine. Like Star Trek.
Nope,
Uh,
you're not really a Star fan.
It's not this. It's not this. I'm not against stars.
Okay.
Anything in the constellation. I'm just. I rebel against every writer's room we've ever been in Star Wars in the praying at the altar of Star Wars. That's what I have an issue with.
Okay.
No.
Thanks for clarifying.
Now, half of your listeners are like, well, fuck this guy.
Don't worry, we'll just bleep it out.
I saw Spaceballs before I saw Star Wars. So that also might have fucked with my head a little bit. Because I was like, well, what? This is just an unfunny Star Wars. It's just an unfunny Spaceballs. So, it's like, which is also blasphemy, I know, to people. I get Star Wars. I get it. I have dug myself in the fucking.
I'm still questioning if you're against stars, because that's a space, not a star.
No.
So.
I'm totally not against stars.
Yeah.
I'm like, I guess I'd say I'm more pro stars than anything else.
Okay.
Doug
Action
hates
speaks
Neil
louder.
deGrasse Tyson. He's brutal.
I do not. I don't.
He hates him. We're always talking about it.
But back to the movie, we wrote this movie 7 years ago, too. So to give people a peek into this also, and it was dead many times, like most movies. And we, and not through anyone's fault, really, that it was just like, Disney was like, they really liked it, but they're like, is this movie going to get a $150 million budget? Probably not. And again, to some of our producers' credit, they didn't let it die, and they showed it to Akiva Schaffer 3 years ago, our director, and he loved it, and he was like, I want to do this. And with that, it gave it new life. And
Disney Plus was created.
And Disney Plus existing.
And it's so all of a sudden it created a marketplace where in previous world, Disney, which is not just Disney, but also Pixar and Star Wars and Marvel, they have 52 slots a year for releasing movies. That's it, really. Like, theatrical movies. Now with Disney Plus, there's a lot more slots.
And a different range of budgets too. And
right.
A different range, and it doesn't have to necessarily, it can be a little more niche and like, so it really, that's the short history of it, but that was just a movie that we got paid to write. It helped get us other jobs, but we didn't, at a certain point, we never expected anything to happen with it. And you kind of have to do that. You have to kind of let go of things in a certain way and move on. But we always loved this script, and we're really proud of it. And
has it changed over 7 years?
What's that?
Has it changed a lot?
Yeah. Was it the same years ago?
We've worked on so many movies where we'll come in the middle or the end, or like that's normal enough in terms of like rewrites and stuff. But this movie has certainly changed. I mean, if you read the original script, you'd be like, oh, that scene's not there and this scene's different or whatever. But it's still basically the same movie.
Which is also shocking.
Yeah.
Shocking. That never happened in studio filmmaking. And I got to give a lot of credit to Akiva, who was really just like got what we were going for, and the movie is he just made it better. He took what we had done and just made it better, and we collaborated with him. But the essence of that movie is what was on the page in the beginning, which is very rare, and we're really excited about. Dan and I were looking at it, and we're like, man, that joke is from the first draft.
Yeah,
which is really unheard, which is just, and that's not to toot our own horns. That's just so many things have to go right for that to happen. So many things
over 7 years. I mean, everything moves, and that's fine. Like, it's fine for things to move and shift, especially once you hit production. You want things to improve and shift when you're like actually making the movie and you're editing the movie. Like, and in an animated movie where you can change the jokes a billion times. Well after actual physical production, there's no reason not to like keep honing. But to Akiva's credit, he was just very insistent on like protecting the things that were good and what worked, and
just made everything else better.
Yeah,
like significantly so. Like he really he was. I thank whatever you believe in every day. Thank God every day for Akiva Schaffer. He really came in and was just a dream to work with, and just just got it and was so gracious with us too.
Mhm.
Mashing multiple animation styles with live action. What's that like from a writing standpoint?
It was one of the more fun parts of the creation of the world in the movie, to be honest. Like it was, you know, like no secret, like Roger Rabbit was a deep inspiration point. It's one of
Yeah.
like my favorite movies of all time. I'm obsessed with it. But one of the little observations we felt like we could really expand in this movie was to really think about how animation styles themselves are sort of time stamped. And so the idea that like there's certain cartoons that like existed from a certain era and they'd be a certain age or they're from a certain place. Like there's a scene in our movie that takes place at like a Russian bathhouse. And so the animation styles in the background for some of those characters are like are like crappy 1950s animation. And one of the details about like that animation style is like they actually had less frames per minute because they didn't want to spend as much. And so like they have a sort of a more of a floating quality. They like move from like one frame to the next a little slower, and you'll see like weird little details like that. And so we really thought about like the neighborhoods and the places that would be in our make believe Hollywood, where cartoons are real people and real actors, and tried to think about like, okay, like who's the young cool teen cartoon that would exist in this place? Who's the old hat kind of like old Hollywood star that's been around forever? Um, and some of that stuff is very much in the movie. Others of those things are just like jokes in the background, things that are just details and texture, and other stuff is like just part of the development of it. But we definitely tried to think a ton about like animation style as a signifier for who these characters are, and like what their personalities are like, or to take those things and play them as opposites.
So that brings me to the next question. What type of cartoon character would you guys be?
Oh, um,
Yeah.
well, I mean, I definitely had a Darkwing Duck impression for a good portion of my childhood, and that's always how seen myself as a Darkwing Duck type. I won't break out the impression because I tried to bring it back and it was really bad. Um, that's my answer. There you go.
I think that the first thing I thought of was, I don't know if anyone saw the animated Sword and Stone
Yes.
movie. I think about the character for that, not the second half where he pulls the sword from the stone, but the weak part where he's having a trouble getting that sword out of the stone. I think that also that I guess that 19, I don't know what year that was.
That's 70s, I think. No,
70s,
maybe early
Disney.
80s.
I think 80s.
Yeah.
I really love that style, and I love how they drew kind of weak, frail characters with floppy hair, struggling to lift heavy things. That's my answer.
If you're interested in taking a TV or film screenwriting course or one-on-one coaching to get the motivation, knowledge, and accountability you need to finish your script, you can find these things on my website at www.jordanimiola.com or look for the link in the podcast episode description.
Love that. So to shift topics a little, we know you have a lot of experience creating your own content. We talked a little bit about your sketches and shorts. Could you tell us some about Most Likely to Murder and your journey taking that to South by Southwest, if you submitted it to other festivals, and what that was like for you guys?
Yeah, we started writing that a couple years before. It was a big goal when we were leaving How I Met Your Mother that we were like, we really want to like make something a little more on our own and a little more independent. And so we started writing that sort of towards the end of working there. And it was, always from the outset, we were like, well, we got to think about something that can be pretty contained and low budget. There's a storyline in that movie about wanting to watch an old VHS tape and how hard it is to find a VHS player. And that was the whole movie for a while. We were like, oh, what if it's just like a guy going around his old hometown looking for a VHS player? And eventually we realized like that's not enough of a story. And so we started thinking about some ways to really beef up like plot and intrigue and momentum. And so it became a sort of a Rear Window story, which is again like this wonderful sort of self-contained location where it's like really is about these two houses across the street from each other. And so we wrote it, and we're like we said, we've been best friends with Ada Pally forever, and Rachel Bloom is my wife, and she had just won a Golden Globe, and it was a very exciting time, and people were excited to give us just a little bit of money, and so we took it out. Frankly, we took it out to a ton of places, and nobody for a while, and nobody bought it. And nobody would finance it until Rachel won a Golden Globe, and so Rachel won a Golden Globe, and that opened up some doors a little bit more, and so.
But no floodgates, not floodgates.
No,
not
yeah.
Not a knock on Rachel, but no floodgates were open.
Well, as a specific that I'm sure like up and coming filmmakers who are trying to make their own stuff like maybe useful to know is like we got an offer from Sony screen not Screen Gems their indie division, Sony whatever classics.
Who knows if it exists anymore?
It actually does, I think. But anyway, they were very nice. They offered us they made an offer to us. But we had budgeted the movie at we had figured out we could get this down to like a little over $1 million, something like that. If we really pushed it, we knew we were going to film. We thought we wanted to film in New York, which is a little more expensive, but has more access to obviously crew and talent. And so we figured a way we could get it down to like maybe 1.25, something like that. And Sony offered us like 600, and we were like, ooh, that's really half of what we need at the low end. But we were like, that's just what the business is. You're like, we really are desperate to make this movie. We got to make this movie. We're gonna make it no matter what. And so we had basically agreed to it, and it wasn't even 600. What it was 600 in I believe it's called deficit financing. Is that the term? Basically they told us we could take out a loan for $600,000, and they would guarantee to pay us back when the movie was made. And so like that's a whole other level of like risk where you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to take a $600,000 loan for an IOU from this studio, basically. And and like we talked to enough people, they were like, yeah, that's a thing, people do that, and it's real, like they'll pay you back, but if something goes wrong and you don't finish the movie, well, you're fucked. And so nevertheless, we were in a place where we're like, well, we're really passionate about this, we really desperately want to make this movie, and so we're gonna do it. And then man, out of like sheer luck, we were going to sign that Sony contract on a Monday, and the Friday before it, we happened to be taking a meeting at Lionsgate to do a rewrite on the Monopoly movie, and we were like, it's just a classic thing. We were literally on like the elevator going down with the executive, and he said, yeah, what else are you guys working on? And we're like, oh, we're about to sign this thing to go make it a low budget movie for Sony. And he was like, oh, what's it about? And we told him like the one liner, and he was like, we're Lionsgate is opening up a low budget division right now. Could I read the script? And we sent him the script that Friday. And on Monday, before we signed the Sony contract, he was like, we want to make you a deal. And they actually offered us like the budget we needed and more. And we got, everything we needed. And we were able to go film one of their first and only movies from their long ago shuttered indie low budget division. And so it was great, and it was an amazing experience getting to make that movie with our loved ones and our friends. And Doug is in it. He's one of the stars of the movie. He grew one of the worst beards of all time to play a wannabe drummer in a band. And it was an amazing experience. We made it, and then we applied to all the festivals. That's not even true. We applied to the first round of big festivals like Tribeca, Sundance, South by, maybe one or two others, and we got into South by, and that was where we sort of came to premiere the movie, and that sort of South by led to we were able to kind of piece together a sale to Hulu, where they ended up streaming it for a little while, but it recently lapsed that deal. So please go find the movie on Amazon.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's to answer your question. I don't know if there's any other questions to that.
Yes, I'm just glad you guys are not 600 grand in debt. So I'm glad that's how.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah, I was sitting on the edge of my seat for a minute.
I know.
I feel much better. Thank you.
I remember
also just from go ahead. But I was just saying, from a screenwriting standpoint, there is something kind of liberating about and a good exercise in terms of looking at a movie and being like, what is the $600,000 version of this movie? What's the $10,000 version of this movie? Is there $1,000 version of this? In terms from a writing standpoint, and sometimes those limits, budget-wise, can be helpful in looking at your story and thinking about can it sustain for less locations, and what does that do to the structure, and what does it do on a scene-to-scene basis, and is it, and sometimes it can't, because sometimes it can, and that's not a knock on the story, but it's very interesting exercise to do, and I think it's helpful, and those limitations can really open the door for other ideas too.
Awesome.
That's my little nugget of shit you didn't ask for.
Kind of cutting back to Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Rand and I are huge fans of the show.
Oh, thank you.
I remember when she won the Golden Globe, like that was a big deal. As a fan, I was like, yes, Rachel won. I remember I saw an evening with Rachel Bloom at the Largo, I think it was, at the end of season 1. So anyways, I want to know, how did you meet? And then also, what was the workflow like with you?
Well, I mean, funny enough, Rachel and I met in the same sketch group that Doug and I started at NYU, Hammercats. Rachel became the director of it after I graduated, and we were friends for many years. And then one thing led to another, and we started kissing. So we have always been sort of collaborators and creative soulmates, and people who like really, it's our favorite thing. I mean, we talk about comedy and writing and musicals and all that stuff pretty much every day, all day. It's just the texture of our long running conversation. And so, and then you were asking what the sort of process was from love to TV.
Yeah.
Wow. From love to TV, our 20 years in Hollywood. That's
exactly.
Name of your...
Yeah.
I mean, so, Rachel specifically, me and a couple other directors that she knew, we'd help her make these music videos, for like original songs, that she had. That was a big part of her sort of journey, was like recognizing like, oh, like I'm here at UCB with all these other comedians. What differentiates me from them? And a big part of that journey was like figuring out like, oh, like she would keep her sort of musical skills in a box separate from her comedy. And eventually, like when she realized like how much they can and should be married, things started really click for her. And so she would make these like amazing comedy songs and music videos, and then would for years she had two or three failed musical comedy pilots, stuff that like either were bought and no one and were shot and no one picked up, or stuff she sort of tried to take out with other people to sell, and they were all great in their own different ways. And then the tastes in Hollywood are very cyclical. Musicals at the time were really derided, and so nobody really took it very seriously, even though she had really developed a pretty like legit online following for this sort of stuff. It should have been enough proof of concept, but the tastes at the time were not like enough there. And then, like La La Land is part of like this like little shift in the culture where like she was developing it around the same time, and then Aline Brosh McKenna and her met kind of randomly after Aline saw one of her music videos, and Aline is obviously this like world beating screenwriter for Devil Wears Prada and many other things, and they teamed up on this Crazy Ex-Girlfriend idea, and it was like this really wonderful marriage of like Aline's sort of rom-com tastes with Rachel's really weird subversive musical energy, and it became this beautiful show. And Doug and I were there from the beginning, helping out and filling in the gaps wherever they needed help. And so we kind of did everything on that show in weird little bits and spurts, however it needed that. I was a terrible actor on the show, and had several. I actually played my own evil twin. So thank you for those SAG residuals, Aline and Rachel.
But was Doug a good actor on the show?
Doug, Doug was very good. Doug played.
Okay. I'm a mediocre actor. I played Rachel's nemesis from growing up, her husband.
Yes.
But yes.
Did you have a beard?
No, I went sans beard, which some would say hurt my performance.
Yeah,
I'm a mostly, facial hair inspired actor, and the hair does most of the work for me, the heavy lifting. So I was a little too naked for that one. But yeah,
next time.
Yes, Rachel has my number. It's weird. It hasn't rung recently, but she knows where I am.
All right, my nerd question for you guys is: do you each have a favorite song from the show?
I mean, this you guys, I guess, are like legit fans, so I can like get in there. Oh my God, I Think I Like You is like to me the catchiest bop on that thing. And I find myself singing that. And then I will say, the song that I actually most legitimately like have playing in my head the most often is the techno song from Pete Gardner, Having a Few People Over.
Yeah.
I find that to be a very functional song in my life where anytime like someone is coming over, I'm saying it to myself.
There's so many, I mean, what Rachel and Adam Schlesinger and Jack Dolgen did musically on that show is, I think, underrated still. Like, it's just like, you cannot get your head around how many amazing songs they came up with. It's too many. It's actually like, fuck you for being that amazing at this thing. I mean, their hit rate is insane. And Jack Dolgen, who I moved out to LA with, I drove the car, is one of our best friends, who is a collaborator with Rachel, and became, moved his way up the writing staff as well. Dan also directed episodes of the show. But so I'm a huge fan of the songs. I think the one that sticks out for me is also probably because of my love of Jack so much is the I Could, But Who Cares? Is that what it's called?
I could if I wanted to.
I could if I wanted to, which is exactly, Jack's brain, like, spilled out just in music form, which is like, I could, but who, and it's performed so great. It's got the Bruce Springsteen kind of vibe a little bit. so that's the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah, I agree.
Nice.
There's so many gems, so many.
But
gems.
there's too many there. I mean, there are so many, and I know we'll get off and I'll be like, oh shit, I should have said, because there really are.
Yeah.
It's just too many to count.
I've been really like just completely tickled and overjoyed with how much traction some of these songs are getting on TikTok. Like from people who really like don't even know what the show is or have any idea that it comes from a show, but like Friendtopia is like a big TikTok hit where like people like line up in like their girl groups or anybody. It's just like, I'm the brainy one, I'm the evil one, you know, I'm the sexy one, and it's very fun. And I have friends. I definitely have friends. Is a very big TikTok
I
hit
have friends
also.
is so funny to me.
It's great.
I have friends is really, and it's such a great Rachel energy song. Like again,
Yeah.
you know, Rachel, like, and that's one the wonderful thing about Crazy Ex for many reasons is it really is like, and I haven't worked on a ton of shows, but that show is Rachel Bloom, like in the greatest sense. This is what her brain is like, and it's wonderful and weird and funny and sweet, and the fact that she was allowed to explore like her own mind and make a show about it is it still blows me away that they let it happen, and it's magical. And but like that song really is so funny and makes me think of Rachel. It's just, I can hear Rachel's voice as a person just talking with that kind of messaging.
Totally.
You're also on How I Met Your Mother. Can you talk about the writing room for that? And also, just by chance, did you know Joe Cristaldi? We also have
Joe, Cristaldi.
We had him on as a guest. We had him on as a guest a few months ago. He said terrible things about you guys. No,
that sounds like Joe. Well, his whole fucking career is a sham. I don't even know how he got. No, Joe's amazing.
He said the same thing about your career.
Oh
yeah, but who are we gonna believe?
Yeah, exactly.
Probably him. He's great, and another great example of someone who just like had a real silly, dumb idea with that Twitter account, and just killed it, and it led to amazing things. I'd say to talk about How I Met Your Mother, we were Dan and I never thought that we would be. I don't think we just never talked about being staffed. It was always seemed kind of like impossible, and we were making our own stuff, and we were fortunate enough to sell a couple projects where we were attached to star and produce, and nothing ever got made. And our agent at the time sent a script to How I Met Your Mother. They were looking for writers specifically with helicopters over their head. Jesus Christ. And they were looking for writers with New York dating experience, and Gregor and I were taking out a show with IFC, basically about that.
It's called
and we got it.
Banging My Dick Against a Wall was the stage show.
I was going to go ahead and not tell them what the name was, but go ahead. Yeah. But anyway, we got the job, and it was just amazing. It's where we learned how to write. Honestly, it was just a murder's row of writers from Frasier, from Arrested Development, from just everywhere were there, and the higher up
Living Single and Full House, couple real 90s gems.
You write what you can write on. I mean, but these.
That wasn't.
Oh, okay.
I was bragging.
I mean, Living Single is fucking fantastic. And they were just also gracious to us as staff writers, and allowed us to grow. And we got to watch over 100 episodes of television be broken and learn how to do that and churn them out. And so it was. And to this day, some of our closest friends we met there and still talk to all the time. So working in How I Met Your Mother was
from Joshua Tree with two of the other writers.
Yeah, just got back from Joshua Tree this
Gerard,
and Matt Simmons.
Beautiful birthday party for the boys.
Yeah, and they started the same year we did, but they had been assistants on the show, and so it was working in How I Met Your Mother. You couldn't have asked for a better situation, where you could find your voice and help tell stories and see how the sausage is made. How do you actually build an episode from the ground up and work it and work it and work it until it becomes a product? And we got to be in the editing room, and we got to be on stage and doing punch up structure. We did everything. And so that really was, that show really made us set us on a course that I'm so grateful for. It was the best and fun and a dream job.
That's awesome. So I guess the story checks out. Joe also said it was a great job.
All right,
Thanks
Joe.
for confirming.
Wow, he finally tells the truth for once.
We talked about a lot of great things today. Thank you both. We are running towards the end of our time, but something we like to end on is we like to ask our guests what their favorite TV show is now or of all time.
Doug?
This is so tough. I'm not going to give you one answer. I can't give you one answer. I won't do
Right,
it.
we'll take top three.
Right now, I'm rewatching for the third time Deadwood.
Ooh.
Sopranos I've watched 5 times through. Those shows to me are like a gold standard. And I could watch Frasier whenever. Yeah. So I guess that's what I'll say now, and I'll regret it immediately after I get off. There's so many more, but
Did Joe influence you at all? Or his Twitter?
did Joe influence me?
Joe didn't even know what Frasier was until Doug met him.
He did not, but I was a very big fan as soon as he started doing it. I looked forward to his tweets because of my love for Frasier, and I really did. I read them and thought they were so dead on, and how he was great. So no, but he did not influence me in that way. No, I will not give him that credit. I will give him credit for a fantastic idea and even better execution. But yeah, and Frasier is just if you haven't seen Frasier, it's a beautiful show. Dare I say? It's some of the best performances.
Little show called Frasier.
Yeah. A lot of people haven't seen it. I mean, of a certain generation, obviously. It went for 9, 11 years, whatever. Those are
But not the geriatric old
Stop with that.
millennials.
You better stop
Oh,
with that.
sorry.
Decrepillennials.
Decrepillennials, that's it.
Yeah.
Both of these are making me sad. Go ahead. Sorry, Dan, go for it.
Oh no. I mean, I just finished The Dropout. It was fucking great. I loved it. I thought that was really delightful. I really liked it a lot. And I mean, my Seinfeld and Arrested are my 2 favorite comedies of all time. So
Seinfeld,
there's that. Can't really argue with that. And then I mean, I guess I don't know. Breaking Bad's the best show of all time. The best show. Whatever. What a boring answer.
Not boring. Oh, and I'm watching Atlanta right now, and it's just it continues to blow my mind.
Mm-hmm.
This season is unreal, I think. So.
Well, thank you, Dan.
Shark Tank. Sorry.
Love Shark Tank. No.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today and sharing all your stories and experiences. We really appreciate it, and I'm sure a lot of people will also appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you guys
for what you guys are doing. The community that you guys have built, it's something special, and it's exactly what writers should be doing. I think.
Thank you.
Just sharing their work and hearing it out loud is the best.
We
thing
hope
to do.
We hope to be like your UCB teams. All of us get writer jobs and love each other.
Oh yeah. I can I just say, I will say, like, the comedian Gil Ozeri is a good friend of ours. He was coming up with us, and I remember he said, in this very depressed sort of way, he was like, look around here. Well, how many of us could actually make money at this? And he was like, and he was really serious. He was like depressed about it, and I was like, I don't know, like, what if we all did? And Gil was like, what, at best 10%? And he was so wrong. It was really like most of us like found a way to make a living at it, and I bring that up to him sometimes because I'm like, you know, it was good that we all stuck with it because it worked out.
Yeah.
Really did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. It has been such a pleasure talking to both of you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Check out the movie
Appreciate
on
it.
Disney Plus.
Yeah, Rescue Rangers.
Thanks for listening to Screenwriters Talk Screenwriting. Subscribe, rate, and review for more episodes.
If you're interested in taking a TV or film screenwriting course or one-on-one coaching to get the motivation, knowledge, and accountability you need to finish your script, you can find these things on my website at www.jordanimiola.com. That's JORDANIMIOLA.com. Or look for the link in the podcast episode description. And now the joke of the podcast. What's the best thing about Switzerland? I don't know, but the flag is a big plus.
Yeah!